It's baffled scholars for 2 millennia. It is a puzzle made of multi-dimensional elements, an enigma with roots that reach back to the dawning of time, perhaps before. Daniel explained part of it. Ezekiel and Isaiah had glimpses into it. John saw it all for the time of the end. That time is now. Join Derek and Sharon Gilbert on a journey that spans the course of history, from Eden to Mount Hermon, from Hermon to Babel, from Babel to Rome, from Rome to the cross, and from there to us. Biblical prophecy is coming true before your eyes, and to understand it, you must discern the times both then and now. It's time to unravel the threads of this all-encompassing prophetic paradox. It's time to unravel Revelation.
Welcome to Unraveling Revelation. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and we're delighted you've chosen to join us once again on this long mystery tour through the Bible, trying to understand what's in the book of Revelation, but mostly the revelation from Genesis to the very end.
And we're in the middle of the unfolding of Bible prophecy, which is why we have gotten to Revelation chapter 19, and then since October of 2023, as things have begun to really ramp up in the Middle East, we've detoured into current events, because what we see happening there currently, I mean, it's very top of mind for Christians, for Jews, for Muslims, but especially if you've got an eye towards end times prophecy.
And I think depending upon which side of the aisle you sit on, since the election and the inauguration of President Trump, there are those who feel that everything is now shifted in one way or the other. There are those on the left that think the world is going to go to HE double hockey sticks, and those on the right, although they'd actually say it, those on the right, that some on the very far right, who are starting to look at Trump and thinking, well, maybe he's the Antichrist. So I don't know exactly how Trump is going to be used by the Lord, but he is in that office because the Lord put him there.
Yeah, I've heard it put, I think very well, not original to us, but certainly very well, that Trump, we don't know for certain that he is a man of God, because only the Lord knows what's in his heart, but he is certainly the Lord's man for this hour.
Just like Cyrus was.
Just like Cyrus was. And we talked about this previously, where, in fact, we did a program on this on our program, The Bible's Greatest Mysteries, which you can access along with all of our programs, including our podcast, PID Radio, one of the original podcasts on the internet. 20-year anniversary this week as you are watching this, by the way.
Gosh, we've been at this a long time.
We have. You can access all of this through our free mobile app for iOS, Android, Amazon, Kindle Fire phones and tablets, or you can add it to your smart TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV. We've got a Gilbert House Ministries app for there as well, for those platforms as well, and you can access all of those at gilberthouse.org/app or unravelingrevelation.tv/app. Add that, because that bypasses the gatekeepers of big tech. And while we seem to have a window of reprieve, a grace period, you never know when that's going to close. So if you get the app, add to your mobile device, your smart TV, we can continue bringing programs to you, whether it's video, audio, whichever. We just are really excited about discovery, not just in the Bible, but, in trying to analyze how the headlines are fulfilling the promises that we see in Scripture.
Yes, and while you are there, while you're at gilberthouse.org, please go to 2 places for me. One, go to /store, because you can go to our store and there are links to other sites where you can watch our content online. You can watch our DVDs. You can stream them. You don't have to buy a DVD and have it shipped to Timbuktu and pay for a lot of shipping costs. But you can also, while you're there, you can go to Light Hive Creations, where you can get caps and you can get T-shirts and you can get mugs. Yeah, here's an armored sheep mug now. And I want you to go there because all of the proceeds from those sales, as much as they can possibly, there are a lot of savings there, let's just put it that way, but the whole purpose for Kenny and Gidget is to get instruments in the hands of young people who want to study music but cannot afford the instruments. And there's one young man who had saved up his own money, I think he's 8 years old, to buy a bass so he could learn to play bass guitar. And it was run over in an accident, totally destroyed. He saved up all of that money. They're not cheap. So you can help him get a guitar back. You can help him get a bass guitar back. Just go to Light Hive Creations, and you can buy anything there. It doesn't have to be our stuff. But help them out, because Kenny and Gidget are good people. Yeah, Kenny is a world-class musician. He teaches students, young people. He also teaches some adults. Our good friend, Pastor Doug Van Dorn, whose podcast, Giant Steps, because, you know, Nephilim, giants. He's also got merchandise there at Light Hive Creations, as do our friends at Skywatch TV, our good friend Vicki Joy Anderson. But again, the proceeds help to provide instruments for students whose families cannot afford them. And that's what we do. In fact, we've just, like, here, Kenny, Gidget, you take this. We don't need anything from this. Just please use it for the kids. The second thing you could do for us while you're at gilberthouse.org is go to /travel, because we are still planning to go to Israel in October. Even though Derek has issues now, he's now carrying his staff with him at all times. Moses walked for 40 years with one of these. I can do it for a couple of weeks. I can't stand bright lights, which I think I'm going to put my hat on in a minute, because even these are kind of bright. But we are going to go. So if you're thinking, well, maybe, I don't know, I'm getting older, I don't know if I can. Look, if we can do it, you can do it. So go to gilberthouse.org/travel and check it out there. You'll see all the details. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be fun. That'll link you to the Lipkin Tours website, and the CEO of Lipkin Tours, Aaron Lipkin, his father, Avi, has been coming over to the United States and preaching to churches here in the U.S. for 35 years. He hasn't been able to come over the last 2 years because of the war. Avi from Queens in New York says, hey, I was a neighbor of Donald Trump. Who knew? But Avi does a weekly program. And we're going to talk about that on this program. Where he does a weekly Zoom call. And it is then recorded and then uploaded to YouTube by Aaron. So Avi, who's got some unique insight, because he was involved with government. He was an official spokesperson for the Prime Minister's office years ago, until they realized he was a conservative and not a socialist, and then they kicked him out. As Avi describes it, Israel is about 60% conservative, 20% socialist, and 20% Arab, he says. The 20% socialists are deeply embedded inside the upper levels of government, the judiciary, and the military, to where if you are in the military and you want to become a high-ranking officer, or in the Air Force, if you want to become a pilot, if you're not a socialist, you're not going to be promoted. The fix is in. Right. So in other words, Israel has a deep state every bit as deep as America's deep state. And they don't like Benjamin Netanyahu any more than our deep state here in the U.S. Which means they don't like Trump either. Donald Trump, and they don't like Donald Trump either. But Avi loves Trump. And so anyway, Avi gives his analysis based on his interpretation, but his wife, Rachel, lovely woman, who is an Egyptian Jew, speaks Arabic, reads Arabic, and was in the media for many, many years. And because, being raised in Egypt, which is a majority Muslim country, has been since the 7th century AD, prior to its conquest around the year 638 AD, Egypt rather, was Christian. It was Christian. But she's got very good insights into the workings and plans of the Muslim nations around Israel. So together, the two of them have a pretty good understanding of what's going on, and insights that most of us here in the West don't hear, because it's filtered through their deep state media and our deep state media. So you and I watch his program every week. Right. And when we were in Israel last time for the Solidarity Tour last spring, he sat down with our group and he allowed us to ask him questions, and he gave a long presentation about what he sees as history and what's coming. And I'll tell you, he is almost always right. Right. And in fact, he asked us to record it, and it was uploaded as a podcast episode, my personal podcast, which is titled A View from the Bunker, kind of tongue-in-cheek, because they know where we are. He shared with us last spring what he basically shared on his most recent, as we're recording this, and as you're watching this, it's no more than 2 weeks old, his most recent
Middle East analysis, and he sees the map being redrawn, which in light of Bible prophecy and many of the prophecies that he looks at as an Orthodox Jew are the same ones that we look at: Book of Amos, Book of Joel, Book of Isaiah, Book of Book of Zechariah, the land promised to Abraham from Genesis chapter 15, all of that, and in light of what is happening right now in Israel, with Donald Trump coming to office, and with Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu basically seeing eye to eye on the way things are unfolding there, we are seeing a once in a lifetime, perhaps, opportunity to redraw the map of the Middle East.
Well, I think so. The first time you and I went to Israel was in 2018, and it was during the 70-year anniversary of the founding of the nation of Israel, the modern nation of Israel. And that was all kicked off. If you look at history, the simple thing is, it was the Balfour Declaration. And yeah, it was. The Balfour Declaration was in 1917. And so in 2017, I said we need to, which oddly enough was the 70th anniversary of Roswell? In 2017?
2017 was, And then 2018, of course,
a lot of high weirdness began about the time of the First World War, and then again about the time of the Second World War shortly after. But Avi, in this most recent update on his YouTube channel, discusses the Sykes-Picot Agreement, which was in 1920, something like that?
No, that was 1917. No, 1916. 1916.
Okay. So it was before Balfour?
Yes.
Okay.
Sykes and Picot.
I thought it came right after, but yes, the fact is it redrew the maps.
Yeah.
It said, okay,
well, let me double check
France
that to make sure I'm correct.
England gets this. Let's see, who else is going to? The United States wants some. Anybody else want anything?
Well, the U.S. was not included in it. It was actually November 1915. And it was signed in 1916, which pretty much just divided the Mesopotamia between the...
Was that Wilson?
No, the United States was not in World War I at this point. Was he our
president at the time?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yeah. But this pretty much divided Mesopotamia and the Levant between the United Kingdom and France. Russia and Italy kind of gave their, assent. It's like, okay, this is fine. But the United States was not part of that agreement at all. This did complicate things for the United Kingdom because at this point, if you've seen the movie Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence, who had been tasked with going to Sharif Hussein bin Ali, who was the Sharif of Mecca. He was the ruler of the holy places of Islam, which at that point was mainly Mecca. They didn't, Jerusalem was kind of important, but it didn't really become as important as it is claimed to be now until it was really this. It was the rise of the Pan-Arabist movement, which was part of World War I, and that's because the Brits instigated an Arab rebellion against the Ottoman Turks to distract the Turks who were allied with Germany and Austria-Hungary in World War I. So let's weaken the southern flank of the Axis powers so that we can win World War I.
And oil was a big deal. The actual application of crude oil had been discovered by that time. Yeah.
It just hadn't been discovered in the quantities it was until about the 1930s.
No, but they understood.
But they understood. There was some,
this is the new gold.
Yeah, and there were some arguments over who got the concessions. But the bottom line is Sykes-Picot, once that secret treaty became known, because the Russians in 1916 found out about it, then the Bolsheviks took over Russia and they published it. And so suddenly the Arabs are like, hey, wait a minute, you promised us independence in exchange for going to war. And the Brits had to say, no, it's fine, it's fine.
It's probably fine.
Yeah, they were making promises they really didn't intend to deliver. But anyway, we are looking at a similar redrawing of the map comparable to what we saw 100 years ago with Sykes-Picot.
Now, when you say redraw the map, and those of you, if you are really interested in this, we highly recommend you watch Avi's video, and we'll link to it in the program notes. I think you can do it. But if you watch it online, that is.
If you watch it online.
Yeah.
If you're watching this on the PTL network, and God bless you and thank you for doing it, just go to YouTube, do a search for Avi, A-V-I, Avi Lipkin, L-I-P-K-I-N.
He was talking about redrawing the maps, and especially with regards to the Kurds and the Azeris.
Yeah, and the Druze.
The Druze. Well, you and I have talked about the Druze before, but the Kurds and the Azeris, that was kind of a surprise to me. I hadn't even really thought about the Azeris.
Right. We need to take a break, but we'll come back. We'll explain why the Kurds are really important, because they were, in fact, the one major people group who came out of World War I with no country. Yeah, thanks to Sykes and Picot. But those implications, the consequences of that, still reverberating around the world today, but maybe not for much longer.
God's creation is full of mysteries. What were the giants in the scripture? Did dinosaurs roam the earth in the days of Noah? Are we alone in the universe? Join speakers L.A. Marzulli, Derek Gilbert, Michael Hoggard, Mac Dominic, Sharon Gilbert, and Micah Van Huss to explore the topics your Sunday school teacher didn't talk about at the Mysteries of the Bible Verse event in the greater Indianapolis area, June 13th and 14th.
We'd love to meet you. Here are a few of the places you can find Sharon and Derek Gilbert in the months ahead. The Aliens, AI, and the Antichrist Conference in Blue Eye, Missouri, April 10th through 12th. Mysteries of the Bible Verse Conference, June 13th and 14th in Indianapolis. The Go Therefore Conference, July 25th and 26th in Brookville, Ohio. The Remnant Rising Conference, August 22nd through 24th in Springfield, Missouri. For the latest information, go to gilberthouse.org/calendar.
Welcome back to Unraveling Revelation. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and we're delighted again that you've chosen to hang in there with us, because today's topic, I think, is really, really important. I want to remind you again, go to gilberthouse.org and just noodle around and
peruse.
See what all we've got. Avi Lipkin, I think he has his hand on the pulse, his finger on the pulse of what's going on in the Middle East, but the whole world.
He does. He's a very astute political observer, but he views it through the lens of Bible prophecy, which is very important. And he is a bridge, and has been for 35 years, between Orthodox Jewish believers and Christian believers. And he understands, having been raised in New York, made Aliyah as a very young man, the importance of American Christians in general, but especially American Christians, and the safety, security, and future of Israel.
He also is a bridge between Orthodox Jews and Messianic Jews.
Right.
There are some Orthodox Jews that will just slam the door on a Messianic Jew.
So Avi, in his recent program, pointed out that the Kurds, who, again, alone among the people groups who were angling for independence after World War I, got robbed. I mean, there are 40 million Kurds in the world today. They're about the largest people group who do not have an independent nation, and their territory, which is majority Kurd, straddles the borders between Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Azerbaijan and Turkey, Eastern Turkey.
And the Azeris are from Azerbaijan?
Azeris are Azerbaijan.
Question. The Kurds are not Arabs, but they are Muslims.
The Kurds, yes, they are Sunni Muslim, but they are neither Arab nor Turk.
So what are they?
They are a unique people group. They are not Persian either. So and this is one of the complications of dealing with the Middle East, because there are ethnic tensions as well as religious tensions. So you have
nation against nation?
Yeah, ethnos against ethnos, exactly right.
Tribe against tribe.
That is right.
Who knew? So
the Kurds don't get along with most of their neighboring groups, the Persians, the Iranians, the Azeris and the Kurds seem to get along all right, but the Arabs, which would mean the Iraqis and the Syrians, don't get along with the Persians necessarily, or the Turks. The Turks don't get along with the Arabs or the Persians, and nobody likes the Kurds, it seems. Then you get a smaller group in there, the Yazidis, who have their own unique religion, which is, we won't even touch that one today because that's a whole nother story. But again, with 40 million people, that's a lot of people, and that's a very important group. And the Kurds are kind of landlocked as they're surrounded by these various people groups. But the Kurds and the Israelis and the Azeris, who are like northern neighbors of Iran, between Iran, they're the eastern neighbors of the Armenians.
Yes.
And they've had some ongoing conflict between the Armenians and the Azeris.
And Russia's been in there trying to negotiate that.
Right. And Georgia is to the north of Azerbaijan. Avi thinks that when this all comes together, that Israel, who has been asked by the Druze, who occupy southern Syria, and that border zone, we talked about this a few weeks ago, the border zone next to the Golan Heights, they've asked Israel for protection. And as we're recording this past Sunday, so no more than a couple of weeks ago, as you're watching this, Prime Minister Netanyahu, addressing an IDF graduation ceremony, brand new soldiers, said, you better listen. We will not allow the Sunni group, basically Al-Qaeda in suits, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS for short, who took Damascus, kicked out Bashar al-Assad. We will not allow their armed forces south of Damascus. Now that includes the area next to the Golan Heights. It includes the area called Suwaida, which is on the border between Syria and Jordan, which is mainly Druze. Now the Druze are Muslim, but they are not Muslim. They are Arab, but they do not identify as Muslim. So they are neither Sunni nor Shia. And a lot of Druze live on the Golan Heights, which Israel captured in the Six-Day War back in 1967. And since then, they've been loyal Israeli citizens. Many of them serve in the military. And
they want Israel's protection.
Right, because their Syrian cousins have seen how the Druze on the Golan Heights have benefited from being part of Israel, while they have come under attack by these violent Sunni groups like Al-Qaeda, like the Islamic State, and so on. And so they're not looking at Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, 50 miles away in Damascus, and saying, we don't want them down here. Please protect us. And Netanyahu saying, we will protect you. We will not allow these Sunni groups to send military south. Now, this got a lot of pushback. It's like when Donald Trump saying we will own Gaza. And everybody just went, whoa, no, you can't say that.
And he released an AI video.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness, he shared that. And Derek, if you've seen it, don't make the assumption that this is what Donald Trump intends to do. He is so playing them.
Yes.
He's trying to get Egypt on board with helping out. Because it's like I used to say to our daughter, okay, honey, I know you're off to school this morning, but I've been asking you for 2 weeks to clean your room. Here's the deal. You can clean it or I'll clean it. So you can either clean it when you get home or tomorrow when you're in school, I'll clean it.
Yeah.
And when I clean it, I make the decision as to what goes and what stays.
Yep. And suddenly the room was clean.
Suddenly it was.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what's happening with Gaza right now, with Egypt and Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE now getting together and saying, okay, let's figure this out because that crazy American might actually do it. The point that Avi was making is that if Israel is successful in doing this, and as we pointed out in our program a few weeks ago, the Kurds already essentially control everything in Syria east of the Euphrates River. If Israel extends its protection and its military protection over southern Syria, which the Jordanians are likely to be, King Abdullah is likely, even though he may publicly say, no, this is no good, privately he's saying yes, because he doesn't want the violent Islamist Sunni Muslims right on his border.
Not at all.
They've dealt with that previously with the PLO and Yasser Arafat.
Right.
So they don't want this. So if Israel is going to be a buffer zone between his kingdom and these violent Muslims from Damascus, I think King Abdullah will be on board with that.
And
so what
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so what then you would have is Israeli dominion that extends all the way to the Euphrates River, and that takes us back to Genesis chapter 15, where God promised Abraham, to your offspring I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river. Now, bear in mind, the river of Egypt in this context doesn't mean the Nile. That's a phrase, that's a wadi that was the traditional border between Israel and it's in the Sinai Peninsula. It's not the Nile River. But still, does this mean the fulfillment of prophecy? Now, there's some would argue that it was fulfilled in the time of David and Solomon when they went all the way to the north in what is now Syria, because the Euphrates River runs all the way up there. But maybe it means this, and suddenly the Kurds and the Azeris have free airspace where they can now finally fly without having to go across the airspace of enemies.
Allow me to make a suggestion. First, an observation, and that the observation is that if Petra is the refuge for those who flee Jerusalem midway through the tribulation period, is what most prophecy scholars think that is when that will occur, when Jesus says, when you see these things happen, run, don't even stop to take don't grab anything. It's like when there's an emergency on the plane, they say, don't even get your purse, get nothing, just run, get out. So that's what Jesus said to do. Well, where do they go? The belief is by some that the refuge is in Petra, and you and I tend towards that belief, which means that southern part of Jordan, the Moab region.
Yep. Oh, that'd be Edom.
That's right. Sorry, Edom would be protected. If indeed this is all done under the aegis of Trump and Netanyahu redrawing the map, and nations all say, okay, we're going to get on board with this, we're going to make Gaza over again. Well, guess what? This could be the hook in the jaw.
That draws other nations in. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the hook in the jaw on next week's program, because I think, again, revisiting the war of Gog and Magog and what the hook in the jaw could be, I think is well worth discussing. But especially in the context of redrawing the map, because although Trump and Netanyahu may see this as a good thing, there are probably,
I think in the short run, it is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only way you're going to have Gaza be a different place for the citizens is to get rid of the terrorist organization.
Right, yep. But there are those who will resist this by any means necessary. I mean, if we've learned nothing from the 1400-year history of Islam, is that any means necessary is exactly how they have spread the religion. You remember from a program we showed a couple of weeks ago, the spread of Islam over the course of the first 100 years of its growth.
And we will mention also that in Avi's program this week, he said that October 7th event, that war is over. The next one is coming. Yeah.
Which is sad, because we're just sort of getting used to the idea that Israel is back open again, that there are places in Israel that we plan to visit in October.
Maybe for a few years. I don't know, but we'll talk about that next week.
Yes. Until then, we thank you for watching. Again, please visit our website, gilberthouse.org. And until next time, this is Unraveling Revelation.
Unraveling Revelation is a viewer-supported outreach of Gilbert House Ministries. Follow us online at unravelingrevelation.tv and gilberthouse.org. That's where you'll find our weekly Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship. Join us as we study the Bible every week, verse by verse, in chronological order. Contact us through our websites or drop us a line at P.O. Box 78, Crane, Missouri, 65633.